Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be running around getting some steel for the shop. We're going to make a layout for a frame table, cut out some brackets, and then maybe also try to finish up the passenger side lower control arm. So we're getting things done and making some progress. Stay tuned and enjoy the episode. So we got this thing all loaded up. Just checking. Trailer lights looking good. So got a little bit of overhang, but we should be okay. And I'll put a flag on it. Back to the shop. Steel's unloaded and kinda in the garage, but we'll take this thing back and be ready to go. But why is it always raining whenever I try to do anything like this? No fun. Okay, so we're back. I got the 2x2s cut up and on the rack, which is very much so at capacity. And I got my 2x4s. These are 120 wall 2x4s. And I'm lopping off a 10-foot section. This section here is actually going to be part of the frame table. This is going to be the main rails of the frame table that we're going to set up. And they're 14 feet long. So the shop is not, well, it's big enough to fit the whole truck in here, no problem. But it's a little bit tight. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the frame table 14 foot long. That's gonna give us plenty of room to get the main chassis rails set up on the frame table, but give us a little bit more room to walk around before the frame rails are here. And then when the frame rails are here, we're just gonna have to kind of put up with it. So they're 14 foot long. The truck's on the 116 3/4 inch wheelbase. So it's going to be plenty of room to get the wheelbase set up correctly and get all the axles set. So just going to cut these two pieces here, lay these to the side, and then we're going to get working on lower control arms. I don't think I'm going to have enough time today to build this all the way out, but transition over to the other passenger side lower control arm, finish that up, and then later this week we'll continue to keep plugging away on this frame table. So stay tuned. Okay, so off camera I got the first two bends here done, the 40 and the 50 degree angle. Gonna get this mocked up, trace my lines over, and then we're gonna go ahead and probably get it all tigged up. One thing is I'm making everything on the driver's side in the beginning because all my scribe marks and lines and stuff are already on it. But when I go to cut the ball joint, I'll flip it over so it's the right 10 degree angle. So that should work out good, and we'll see how we can keep on moving here. Okay guys, so we got a new tool alert here. We got a new, I think this is a Build Pro ATN 100, I believe is what that's called. So it's a tubing notcher. After the last video, I was talking about how I had those little 3D printed miter gauges. How this guy works here is you have, on this side, you have these pucks that can be moved around in different locations for different angles. So you can do compound angles. And then you have this clamp arm that inserts through, and this is what you use to clamp your tubing in while you run the hole saw through it. So we're gonna go ahead and do a couple little test pieces on some scrap tube that's left over from the last set of arms and get the height adjustment. So this is set up that you can adjust this pad up and down to offset your notches. So if you wanna do like a partial, like cut halfway through a tube and then notch a tube and like splice it into it from the side, you can do that. And it's got a little adjustment wheel down here, like a fine address thread here that you can sort of load it up and get level on this arm here. So that helps you set it up and get it true. We're gonna try to get this set up and then we'll try cutting some tube with it. See how it goes. Okay, so second shot was a charm. I started cutting once and I noticed this block all of a sudden cutting loose, and I didn't realize that there's a screw under here that you need to tighten when you assemble the thing. This block is not one piece here. So got that tight and then tried it again. Very, very close on there. There might be, if I can get it to focus, there might be the slightest offset. I broke this off with my thumb. This actually had a little sliver off the side of it too. So if anything, it's just a little, I guess it'd be tall because it was this way. Maybe just a touch tall, maybe, I don't know, a 64th or 32nd of an inch, but it was thin and paper thin, and I could break it off with my finger. So pretty well centered up. So that should be adjusted now. As long as I don't need to do an offset cut, I should just be able to bolt it to the table and use it. So we're gonna try to do our 20-degree cut and our 10-degree cut, and should hopefully cut nice. So this is just taken out. I deburred that edge, didn't deburr this edge yet, but slide it in here and clicks. Like, it's damn near perfect. Damn. Yeah, that is totally worth the $170 I paid for it by far, and then got a cheap Harbor Freight $25 drill. Excellent. It's about 7 o'clock on a Sunday, just daybreak. So my kid woke me up at like 3 o'clock and wanted to be like, hey, let's party. Now she just fell asleep finally, so, well, we'll go out to the shop and weld. All right, so we got the first part of the lower control arm done. Just also fired up the plasma, got these guys cut out, got 2 of these made. Still some water in the plasma because I got to finish some other things up. And one awesome thing is it's starting to freeze, so I got to get some antifreeze for that. The frame table, so once the lower control arm is done, it's on full kill for the frame table. These are going to be corner brackets. They're going to be bent at a 90-degree angle at the center line here. And then there's going to be a piece of mitered angle iron, 2x2 angle iron somewhere right here. So here's your 2x2 angle iron. So we're going to get these bent up into 90s, and then we're going to get those cut up into 45s and take them together, and those will be our corner braces for the frame table. All right, so we got one done. It's almost perfectly 90. I think it's maybe half a degree too bent, but that's gonna be fine because we'll give it a little attitude adjustment when we put the mitered angle iron in there, and then we'll take it and it'll lock it into place. So we'll bend these other three up and then be ready to go. All right, so there you go. I got all four of these bent within probably about 1 degree of 90 degrees. So what we'll need to do when we get them ready to weld up is we are going to lay out some 1, 2, 3 blocks and bolt them to the table on a good 90-degree pattern. Make sure they're real square. So we'll use it. We'll actually lay the 1, 2, 3 blocks up against the right angle here and use that to make sure we're good and square. And then we'll clamp these to the 1, 2, 3 blocks to make sure they're dead on and weld it solid. So that's one nice thing about having a fixturing table. Even if you don't get these bent perfectly right, you have plenty of things to clamp to and things to square up against that you will get it where it needs to be. So we should be able to get that within probably 1/4 of a degree accuracy. And then when we need to, we can always slide some shim stock in behind here to get the corner to corner dimensions on the frame table correct. Okay, so we got the square up here and we have these bolts, or these 1, 2, 3 blocks all squared up tight. So you got nice clamping points here. And what that'll allow us to do, we can drop these bad boys in and use clamps to suck them into the corners here, right like that. And then we're gonna take this the other direction. We'll place it up. We'll use 1, 2, 3 blocks on this. Use a 2-inch 1, 2, 3 riser on this, and that'll set the height here, and we'll have a nice area to weld to and keep it dead square. Okay, so through the magic of editing, we got all 4 of these done real quick. Turned out really nice and square. Burned through the welding quick, so it's not the prettiest stuff in the world, but just trying to get some beads laid down, get it strong. Next, we're gonna come over here, move this stuff out of the way, and start working on the main frame. So we're gonna lay this out on the floor and get it boxed up. And yeah, let's keep on moving. Okay, so it's a little loud here, but anytime you change out a bandsaw blade on one of these cheap bandsaws that really aren't that good, make sure that you always retrue the cut in your miter and also your rack side to side, because different blades have different basically stiffnesses, and depending on how tight you have the belt, you get slightly a different feed direction. So always take a couple little test cuts and check it against a miter gauge, make sure it's good. Okay, so it's the next day. We got everything drilled up. Let me just say that running the drill press is my least favorite thing. You get cutting oil everywhere, chips flying, it makes a mess. So what we got is we got through bolt holes on the main members here. This is the crossbars. And then on the downward facing pieces, which are tipped up right now, we have 10mm holes right now that will need tapped. Well, they're a little under 10, but they're the tap for a 10mm, or drill bit for a 10mm hole. And so we're gonna bolt this together into the upper section of the frame table. We're gonna tap those holes later, and then we're gonna start building the legs out, which are gonna be about 24-inch tall legs, and they'll have about 3 inches of rise with adjustable leveling feet on the bottom of them. And then we'll just sort of get this loosely bolted together now so we can start moving it around. We won't do any of the shimming until we get the legs and we get the laser in here and mark everything out on the floor, because we're gonna get a laser marked out on the floor and run perpendiculars on it where the critical geometry is. And then that way we can plumb bob if needed to see where we are in space. So we're getting there. Let's bolt this together. Okay, so we'll show you guys what we got going on here. We have the corner braces like real loose, not even threaded on tight, but they're gonna be setting the angle. So remember, we welded those in the fixture and they're all within probably 1/4 of a degree of true 90. So they will be able to be shimmed later if need be. But the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get the corners leveled up and true to each other. So if you look at this, the floor is not level. So this tends to rock. So this corner is like way high. I can move it with my toe. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some 1, 2, 3 blocks. We're gonna put 2 1, 2, 3 blocks underneath that and 1 1, 2, 3 block under this corner, and then true that corner up. And that'll allow you to basically get it dialed in without the effect of the floor on the corner. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna hop the 1, 2, 3 blocks around, tighten all these up, get them flush. You might even use some C-clamps and use those to clamp it to some like angle iron or flat stock to draw those corners square with each other. And we're gonna try that next, see if we can get it all tight. Okay, so I accidentally didn't record there. But what we got is we got 1, 2, 3 blocks with the 2-inch side up, 2-inch side up here, and then use some 6-inch clamps, some bar here. This pulls it up straight and gets it sort of level across this surface. So these are coplanar along their midlines. And then we got it tapped into place at the edge. Here is flush with this face here. And now all the bolts are in tight on 90. So when I pop this bad boy loose, they shouldn't move. And we've got one corner squared up and ready to go. So we're gonna do that to all the sides. And then once we get it up on legs, we'll do the fine adjustments because there will need to be some tweaking. Basically we wanna get our corner to corner distances from there to there and from there to there equal, so that way we know the frame table is not skewed like a parallelogram, which is important because it'll basically make the whole frame a parallelogram if we do it that way. And even though it's parallel, that is not an ideal situation. So we'll keep on moving. Okay guys, so we have each corner bolted up nice and square here. Still up on the 1, 2, 3 blocks, but we're within probably, well, I measured it corner to corner and it's within a 32nd of an inch. So the next thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna start working on the legs and we're gonna make some little assemblies to bolt these up and get those fabricated, and they'll be bolted to this underside with nice gussets, and it should hold the frame about 24 inches off the ground. So we'll start that now. Okay, so it's the next morning right now, and I just finished up cutting the job for another customer. He's doing something pretty cool. He's making these, they're like roses that you make out of steel, and I'll post a picture of what he does, but they look amazing when they're done. So he's making a whole, I think like a dozen of them, and just finished up that job. But while I had the machine up and filled with water, I cut out some end caps for the table. Need to knock off some dross. But these end caps will go on the end of this tube here and get tagged on. And before we do that, we are going to put some of these 5/8 nuts right there and take them on. And then these thread in the end. So these are like 3,000 pound a foot rated leveling feet. And this will give us plenty of adjustment to level the table out. So we're gonna get started on that. And a little bit before we weld those on, we're gonna take some height off of this guy. So I'm gonna take about 8 inches off the legs. I made this table too tall. I used a 24-inch tall leg, but I didn't take into account that garage door opener. And if you look at the truck, if I lift this sucker up, I'm gonna be putting the cab on very high and close to that garage door when this thing's up at the frame table. So we're gonna take 8 inches off it. We'll have to hunch down a little bit more when we're working on the frame, but you gotta make some sacrifices when you don't have that much space. So let's get to work. Okay, so the moral of that story is I need a thumb rheostat to do a lot of the work that I'm gonna need to do out here, because a lot of the work is gonna be about that high, and it puts me in sort of an awkward position trying to weld it and trying to use a foot pedal. Anyways, it turned out good. We got it buzzed on here, and you can see that we got plenty of adjustments. So I have it run all the way down in, and then this guy, who's getting a little toasty, will level out to the floor. So that's the only one I'm gonna weld on the machine, because if you saw the previous high-speed hyperlapse, these two bolts in here are a pain in the ass to get in. I need some ratcheting wrenches, but we're gonna go through and just make one assembly at a time here, and see how they all turn out. All right, so I did a lot of burning off camera. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 legs on. So everything turned out pretty good. Unfortunately, the bolt holes are sort of not lined up, so I might have to do a little reaming and stuff like that when I get this tacked on. And I made one screw up. If you look here, those are supposed to be not there. They're supposed to be down. So I need to drill holes in this guy, and then we're gonna flip the table over and it will be done. All we have to do then is get the laser out, which my buddy just dropped off, clean up the room and get ready to set this thing in its final position. But overall, I'm super pleased. The table should be really beefy. We're gonna see how much flex we get in the middle, and we might add legs in the middle, but for right now, let's see how it works out with this. Definitely very happy. So the adjustable feet and everything look great. So, hey, keep moving along and try to wrap this up. So there you have it, guys. Got the frame table up and it is looking really good. So really sturdy. I don't think we're gonna have to add middle beams or middle feet on the unit, but we may have to. We'll just sort of see how it goes and what kind of sag it gets with weight on it. Really happy with this so far. Next up, in the next episode, we're gonna show you guys how to plumb one of these up with a laser and some other equipment. And we're gonna get this thing sitting perfectly level in space, front and back, side to side. And then we're gonna get solid markings on the floor to lay it out in space. So all the dimensions will be along this plane, but we need to have reference points on the bottom surface. So that's how we're gonna set it up, and that's where we're gonna go next. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like it, like and subscribe, and go ahead and share it with your friends. It helps a lot. And we'll see you next time.